Hello and welcome to Vox Markets. Today I'm joined by Craig Martin, who's the chairman of Dynam Capital Limited, which is the manager of Vietnam Holdings. How are you today, Craig?
Very good, Zach. Yeah, lovely to talk to you again.
Well, I'm still waiting for the invite to Vietnam. I'm not sure how easy it is these days, but here we are in the depths of winter, or depths
come
of
in January. You can come in January.
Exactly, yes. So what is going on at the moment? We speak sort of periodically. How are things progressing?
Look, I think two key things in Vietnam. One is how rapidly they have got jabs in arms. So earlier in the year, there was a period where Vietnam was struggling to get enough vaccines. It wasn't alone in that. Many emerging economies weren't front of queue. So beginning middle part of this year, about only less than 10% of the population were vaccinated against COVID. That's now 70, 75%, 80% and rising. And the government want to have 100% of the adult population jabbed by the end of the year, which is a remarkable acceleration in that. So obviously wanting to get as much protection as is possible. So the COVID risk seems to be under good control and being managed. Obviously, no one knows what variations come along, but getting people vaccinated is a key in that. And so I think there's some enthusiasm for 22. Next year, in the Lunar New Year, it's the year of the tiger. And so, all those old boxing songs and haunting rhythms, I think the eye of the tiger is definitely going to be on Vietnam next year. The economy is opening up again after the lockdown. Exports are really resuming. Huge exports, US, China, South Korea, all these players. So we've had a couple of months where perhaps banks have taken a bit of a hit. We were fortunate; we managed to take some profit from fantastic runs earlier in the year. But we think things are going to be steadying out for a very strong 22. Bear in mind this has been a fantastic year for Vietnamese equities. The market has been on a strong rally. We've performed well. Our portfolio stocks have done exceptionally well. And as a result, we've been the top performing fund, both in Vietnam, but I think we're the third top performing investment trust in the UK. So that's testament to Vietnam and how it's coped with COVID, but also how you are able to, if you're on the ground, to react to the changing circumstances and find good stocks and get to know them and build a very well made to measure portfolio.
Well, I think the question I haven't asked you before is when you're faced with a rising tide of the whole country rising, how do you pinpoint the best areas to be in, and so you're not buying at the top or you're missing out? I mean, how isn't that a sort of almost a problem area, a problem, a nice problem to have, but it's still an issue maybe.
Yeah, look, exactly. It's a quality problem. We're a closed-end fund, which means to buy a new stock, we need to sell something. So we're always looking for what's the best than what we currently have. We know the universe of stocks very well in Vietnam, particularly in the sectors we're focused on, the domestic consumption story, industrialization and urbanization. And we've got a team fully on the ground in Vietnam, really living and breathing with those companies. So we're able to see when things are starting to pick up in a particular company or a sector, or when things are heading a little bit south. And we're nimble, so we're right-sized for the market. We're able to navigate quickly and take advantage of those opportunities. So it's knowing the companies, knowing the sectors, knowing the drivers to keep a close eye on, and being prepared to go with the conviction. So last year, we added a lot to the banks. They were underrepresented in our portfolio. They did fantastically well for us. Middle part of the year, we started to take some profit. Banks came off a little bit. We're looking to allocate more into them now. So know the names, know when is a better time to be buying, and obviously have patience and hold those compounders for the long term. So you need to be on the ground. You need to have a local team, and you need to have a smallish portfolio. So we've got about 25 names, and we're able to add to those when we find a better one, and we're able to trim when we think perhaps the growth has slowed down. And for us, I mean, growth, we're looking at companies growing at 20, 25% EPS growth per annum. So even the ones we sell, they're not necessarily bad companies. It's just that we've found a better name, or our convictions increasing in a particular company. So yeah, you've got to be active and you've got to be nimble.
I mean, you're obviously in the in this space, and presumably one of the earlier people to spot the opportunity. Have other investment houses come into the fray since you started? Is it becoming more sort of mainstream or blue chip?
I would say that there's two ways to look at that. One is that the Vietnam as a whole is still perhaps a frontier market to many. So perhaps the larger investment houses in the UK, Europe, US, Vietnam doesn't feature very much on the radar. If it does at all, maybe it's a little bit. But what we're seeing in Vietnam, which is really exciting, is a new class of investor. The domestic investor in Vietnam has come from a very small part of the pie to a very large part of the pie. More than 4 million domestic accounts have been opened in the last year. And so that's a very interesting flow, because they're looking at different things perhaps, and looking through different lenses at the opportunity. So that keeps us on our toes. So we're seeing millions of new investors, perhaps with a slightly different approach to the market. And perhaps the bigger institutions from the West are still waiting on the sidelines to a certain extent. So it's a dynamic local market. And again, that plays to opportunity, but also volatility. So 2 years ago, the small mid-cap stocks you could buy at a discount to the larger stocks. Now it's flipped around the other way. A lot of domestic money is coming to very interesting, the higher growth mid-cap stocks, and they're trading at a premium. So we're really kind of in the kind of market with lots of small investors, and the large international investors perhaps are not as active as they have been in the past. There's still about 20% of the market, but on a daily basis, probably less than 10. And it's a lot of the domestic investors who are really generating a lot of the buzz and the movements in the market at the moment. So I'm sure when Vietnam becomes full and proper part of the emerging market index, there'll be a whole line of other foreign investors looking to come into Vietnam.
As I was going to say, it sounds to me that Vietnam is sort of going for the American attitude and model in terms of both the entrepreneurial side and the investment side. So the numbers there, there's probably more investor enthusiasm in Vietnam already than there is in the UK in the stock market.
Look, I'd say certainly more than the UK. I would say the model is probably more like Taiwan. So Vietnam's got about 4% of the population as a stock investor. That's where Taiwan was probably 15 years ago. So in Southeast Asia, also somewhere like Thailand, there's a lot of participation in the stock market. And Southeast Asian investors, they do like equities, whereas as you and I have chatted before, in the UK, for most people's investment, it's the house that they're in. And their stock portfolio may be a small part of their investable kind of wealth. Even Vietnam, a young emerging opportunity, we did a survey, and a quarter of the investors have half of their portfolio in stocks. So it may not be big in terms of dollar value. It's maybe average portfolio $20,000, $30,000, but they're actively invested in the stock market. So we see that very exciting. They're also digitally enabled now to do that through their apps to trade and do their banking and their verification. So I'd say it's probably more like some of the more exciting North Asian markets like Taiwan, South Korea, maybe than the US, and certainly a lot more stock activity than in the UK relative to population.
Right, just finally, just one bullet point for 2022.
Time of the tiger. I think no companies well, and you've really got to differentiate the good from the great, rather than the good necessarily from the bad, and know your businesses and really do very detailed, diligent, increasingly about the companies that are going to be the sustainable champions of the future. That's going to be important for Vietnam as it is in the rest of the world.
Craig Martin, Chairman of Dynam Capital Limited, the manager of Vietnam Holdings. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Zach. Thanks for your time.